My fiancée's secret family emergency was a luxury vacation with her ex. I found out on our wedding day. Am I the a-hole for what I did next? Reddit, I never thought I'd be posting here, but my life has just been detonated by a truth so bizarre and painful I feel like I'm living in a bad movie. I need unbiased judgment because the people in my life are too close to the situation and I'm questioning my own sanity. Buckle up because this is a wild ride. I'm Mark, 34, and I have a wonderful 10-year-old daughter, Emily, from a previous marriage. My ex-wife, Jane, and I have a great co-parenting relationship. There's no drama, just mutual respect for our daughter's well-being. For the past 4 years, I've been with Laura, 32. We got engaged a year ago. Laura was always a bit of a free spirit. She traveled a lot for her job as a brand consultant, which often seemed to involve lavish trips to places like Bali and Tuscany. She said it was for networking and scouting locations for clients. I trusted her. I'm a simple guy, a graphic designer who worked from home, and my world revolves around Emily, my work, and Laura. I thought our differences balanced each other out. The first red flag, which I now see with devastating clarity, was her relationship with Emily. It wasn't hostile, it was performative. She'd buy Emily expensive gifts after returning from her trips, but she never seemed interested in the day-to-day stuff, helping with homework, attending school plays, the real parenting grind. She'd say, "That's your and Jane's domain, I don't want to overstep." I thought she was being respectful. Now I think she was just keeping her distance. The wedding planning was stressful. Laura wanted a huge, Instagram-perfect destination wedding in Italy. I wanted something smaller, more intimate, and definitely within budget. We fought about it, but I loved her, so I caved. I dipped into my savings, the savings that were partly for Emily's college fund, telling myself it was for our future. The planning process was a masterclass in her control. Every detail, from the font on the invitations to the type of olive oil for the guest favors, had to be perfect. I felt like I was just a funding source and a necessary prop in her perfect picture. 2 weeks before the wedding, Laura got a call. She took it in the other room, and when she came out, her face was pale. She told me her favorite aunt, Cecilia, who lived in Switzerland, had a sudden, serious health crisis. It's a family-only situation, very private. She's asking for me, Laura said, tears in her eyes. I have to go. It might cut it close for the wedding. I was concerned, of course. Let me come with you, I offered. We can face this together. Emily can stay with Jane. She was adamant, almost panicked. No, Mark, absolutely not. It's too much. You have final wedding details to handle here. And it's a messy family thing. My aunt would be so embarrassed. It would just stress you out. I'll be back a day or two before we fly to Italy. I promise. She packed a single, small suitcase, which I found odd for a potentially extended trip to care for a sick relative. She said she'd buy whatever she needed there. I drove her to the airport, gave her a hug, and told her to send her aunt my love. She was crying as she went through security. I felt so awful for her and a little guilty for my nagging doubts. The days went by. Our communication was spotty. She'd text me updates like, "Doctors are running more tests," or "Auntie is resting, finally." The photos she sent were strange. Blurry shots of a hospital room window with a generic view, a bouquet of flowers on a bedside table that could have been anywhere. Never a picture of her aunt or herself in the room. When I asked for a video call, she'd say her aunt was sleeping or that the signal in the hospital was terrible. One time, I swear I heard seagulls and laughter in the background before she quickly muffled the phone. My gut was churning, a tight knot of anxiety that never went away. My sister, always the skeptic, asked me point blank, "Are you sure this aunt even exists?" I defended Laura, but the seed was planted. The day before we were supposed to fly to Italy, Laura wasn't back. I was in a full-blown panic. Finally, she called. Her voice was shaky. Mark, I'm so sorry. The doctors say she's taken a turn for the worse. I can't leave her. I'll meet you in Italy. I'll fly directly there the day before the wedding. I promise. I love you so much. It sounded insane. But what was I supposed to do? Accuse my grieving fiancé of lying? I felt trapped and utterly foolish. I spoke to my parents and my sister. They were deeply suspicious but told me, you have to see this through now. If you call it off and she's telling the truth, you'll never forgive yourself. So, feeling like the world's biggest fool, I got on a plane to Italy with my daughter, my parents, and a few close friends. The flight was the longest 12 hours of my life. The venue was stunning, a beautiful villa in the Tuscan hills with sprawling vineyards and ancient olive trees. But it felt hollow, like a beautiful stage set for a tragedy. The day before the wedding, Laura was still a no-show. Her texts became less frequent, more cryptic. Then late that night, I got a message. Aunt Cecilia is stable. Flying out now. See you at the altar. I love you. I barely slept. The next day, the wedding day, I was a bundle of raw nerves. Guests were arriving. The ceremony was set for 5 p.m. under a floral arch overlooking the hills, and there was still no sign of Laura. Her parents were there, looking nervous but assuring everyone she was on her way, that her flight had been delayed. My best man, Tom, was trying to keep me calm with bad jokes and strong coffee. At 4:30 p.m., with still no Laura, I was pacing in the groom's suite, my phone slick with sweat in my hand. That's when I got the Facebook notification. Laura, her last name, was tagged in a photo by Isabel DuPont. My heart stopped. I didn't know any Isabel DuPont. I clicked on it with a trembling finger. It was a photo posted just an hour ago. The caption was in French, but I didn't need a translator for the pictures. Best week ever with my favorite people. So glad we could make this happen. Hashtag no regrets, hashtag STTropez, hashtag SunNC. The photo was of Laura, laughing, her head thrown back, holding a colorful cocktail with a tiny umbrella. She was radiant, tanned, and wearing a designer bikini top and a sheer sarong. She was on a luxurious, gleaming white yacht, the stunning turquoise water of the French Riviera behind her. And next to her, with his arm wrapped tightly around her waist, pulling her close, was a man I recognized instantly. It was her ex-boyfriend, Jean-Paul, a French hotel heir she dated years ago and who, according to her, was ancient history, a fling that meant nothing. There were more photos in the album. Laura and Jean-Paul at a glamorous beach club, feeding each other grapes. Laura and Jean-Paul kissing passionately under a string of lanterns. Laura and Jean-Paul with a group of friends, all looking tanned, wealthy, and blissfully happy. The dates on the photos were from the last 10 days. The entire time she was supposedly at her aunt's deathbed in Switzerland, she was sunbathing, partying, and canoodling with her ex in St. Tropez. The family emergency was a lie, a complete, elaborate, and cruel fabrication. I felt the room spin. The humiliation, the betrayal, the sheer rage, it all hit me like a physical blow. I had emptied my savings for this wedding. I had brought my daughter and my family across the ocean. I had defended her against my own family's doubts. And she was off having a romantic getaway with another man, likely paying for it with the money I contributed. I showed the photo to Tom. His face went from confusion to pure, unadulterated fury. "You have to be kidding me," he whispered, his hand clenching into a fist. After all this? Just then, Laura's mother, Brenda, rushed into the room, flustered. "She's here. She's here. Her flight was delayed, but she just arrived. She's in the bridal suite getting dressed. Quick, Mark, get ready." I looked at her, my vision tinged with red. "Is that so?" I said, my voice dangerously calm. I held up my phone, the St. Tropez photo displayed in all its damning glory. Did her flight get delayed by a week-long yacht party with Jean-Paul? Brenda's face crumpled. The color drained from it. She started stammering, her eyes darting around the room. Mark, please, it's not what it looks like. She was confused. She was under so much pressure with the wedding. She just needed to clear her head. I didn't wait to hear the rest of the pathetic excuses. A cold clarity settled over me. I walked out of the room and straight to the ceremony area where all 150 of our guests were seated, waiting in the golden afternoon light. The string quartet was playing a soft Vivaldi piece. My daughter, Emily, who was my junior bridesmaid in a beautiful lavender dress, looked at me with wide, confused eyes from her seat next to my sister. I walked to the front, where the confused officiant stood. I took the microphone from his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice shaking but clear, cutting through the music. The quartet trailed off. "Thank you all for coming so far to be here today. It means the world to me and my family." I took a deep breath, my eyes scanning the crowd, seeing the mix of anticipation and confusion on their faces. There will be no wedding today. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. I saw Jane, my ex-wife, put a protective hand on Emily's shoulder. "The reason," I continued, holding my phone high, "is that while I was here, preparing to commit my life to Laura, she was here." I tapped my screen, and Tom, bless him, had seen my intention and was already at the tech booth, connecting my phone to the projector. The giant screen behind me, which was supposed to show our happy couple photos, lit up with a crystal-clear image of Laura and Jean-Paul on the yacht, laughing without a care in the world. The gasps turned into shouts of shock and murmurs of disbelief. I heard someone say, "Oh my God." She told me she was in Switzerland, caring for a sick aunt. I said, my voice growing stronger, fueled by a righteous anger. This was her sick aunt, a cocktail, and her ex-boyfriend. She lied to all of us for weeks. She took my money, my trust, and my love, and she spat on it. So, please enjoy the food and the wine. I've already paid for it, but the wedding is off. I handed the microphone back to the utterly stunned officiant, walked over to my daughter, took her hand, and led her out of the courtyard. The silence behind us was deafening, quickly broken by the rising tide of chaotic conversation and the beginning of what sounded like a screaming match from Laura's family's direction. My phone started blowing up immediately. Laura's, her parents, her friends. I turned it off and handed it to Tom. "You're in charge of this," I said. We went back to the hotel. My family and friends were incredible. They rallied around me, and Emily. My dad just kept clapping me on the back, saying, "I've never been prouder of you, son. You have more guts than I ever did." We ended up having a massive, impromptu party at the hotel with all the food and drink that was meant for the reception. It was the most cathartic screw you party I've ever attended. Emily even got to have 3 slices of the wedding cake, which was shaped like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. "This is way more fun than a boring wedding, Dad," she declared, and for the first time that day, I genuinely laughed. The fallout was nuclear. Laura tried to call me 100 times, leaving voicemails that ranged from weeping apologies to furious rants about how I had humiliated her, ruined her life, and betrayed her trust. She claimed Jean-Paul meant nothing, and it was a moment of weakness before settling down, a last hurrah. Her family accused me of being a cruel monster for publicly shaming her instead of handling it like a gentleman in private. But the truth was out. Many guests had taken their own photos and videos of the projection screen. The story spread like wildfire through our social circles back home. Mutual friends who had been skeptical of her extravagant stories for years reached out to me with their own suspicions and stories of her past inconsistencies. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for exposing my fiancé's affair on the big screen and canceling the wedding in such a public, dramatic fashion? Part of me feels like it was a nuclear option, that I should have just quietly left and sent a mass email. But another part of me thinks that after the elaborate web of lies she spun and the financial and emotional toll she took on me and my family, she deserved every bit of that public reckoning. She didn't just cheat. She constructed an entire alternate reality to do it, and I was done living in her fiction. I'm now back home, trying to pick up the pieces, grateful I found out the truth before I actually married her, but still reeling from the blast radius. Thank you for the overwhelming support. Reading your thousands of comments has been incredibly validating. To answer some recurring questions, did you get your money back? It's a mixed bag. The flight tickets and hotel rooms for my guests are a total loss. My gift to them for their support. Some vendor deposits are lost, citing act of God or client cancellation. However, I'm aggressively disputing the major charges with the venue and the caterer. My lawyer is sending them a packet that includes the now infamous St. Tropez photo as evidence of fraudulent inducement. It's a long shot, but worth a try. In a shocking turn, Laura's family has, through their lawyer, offered to reimburse me for a significant portion of the costs I personally bore. I see this as a desperate attempt to avoid a defamation lawsuit, which I have no interest in, and to try to salvage some shred of their reputation. I'm seriously considering it, not for their sake, but for mine and Emily's, just to be done with them and have some financial recovery. What about Laura? We have had zero direct contact. Her social media is either completely deleted or set to the highest level of privacy. A mutual friend, who is now firmly in my camp, told me she's currently staying with Jean-Paul at his family's estate in Nice to lay low and figure things out. I guess her moment of weakness has now become a full-time, post-wedding cancellation relationship. Good luck to them. I hope their foundation of lies and betrayal is strong. How is Emily? This was my biggest worry. A few days after we returned, I sat her down on the couch, just the two of us. I gave her a very age-appropriate version of the truth. Sweetie, you know how the wedding didn't happen? Well, it's because Laura told some very big lies that hurt Daddy's feelings very much. And when people are that dishonest and break your trust, you can't build a happy life with them. She thought about it for a moment and then said, so she was like a villain in a cartoon, but not funny. I hugged her tight and said, exactly like that. She seems to have processed it well and is just happy to be back in her own room with her toys and our goofy golden retriever, Max. What's next for me? I'm focusing 100% on my daughter and my work. I've also taken your advice and started looking into therapy. My self-esteem took a major hit, and I need to understand why I ignored the red flags for so long, because I was afraid of being alone. I need to rebuild that foundation so I never end up in a situation like this again. Life is slowly, steadily, returning to a new and much healthier normal. The financial stuff is mostly settled. I ended up accepting the reimbursement offer from Laura's parents. My lawyer drew up a simple agreement that severs all financial ties and includes a mutual non-disparagement clause. Signing those papers felt like lifting a physical weight off my shoulders. That chapter is officially closed. The most surprising development came about a month ago. I received a long, handwritten letter from Laura. It wasn't sent to my home, but to my office, which felt like a boundary test. In it, she gave a more detailed and seemingly more genuine apology than her frantic voicemails. She admitted that she had been terrified of the mundane, domestic life she thought we were heading toward, and that the glamour and excitement of her old life with Jean-Paul had called to her one last time. She confessed that the trip was initially meant as a test to see if she still had feelings for him, and that she got swept up in the fantasy, feeling too ashamed to back out and tell me the truth. She ended the letter by saying she was in intensive therapy and had been diagnosed with a pattern of self-sabotage and a fear of commitment rooted in her parents' messy divorce. I read it twice, then put it away in a drawer. I didn't respond. While it provided some closure and psychological context, it didn't change the fundamental facts of her betrayal. Her test involved lying to me for weeks, financially exploiting me, and humiliating me and my family on an international scale. Understanding the why doesn't erase the what. There's no coming back from that. On a wonderfully positive note, Emily is thriving. I've been spending more quality, present time with her. No more distractions about wedding plans or Laura's dramas. We go hiking, have movie marathons, and I help her with her science projects. Our bond feels stronger and more authentic than ever. I've also been slowly reconnecting with an old friend from college, Sarah, who is a single mom herself. We've been on a few casual, low-key dates, coffee, a walk in the park, a visit to a bookstore. It's nice. There's no pressure, no drama, and she inherently understands that my daughter comes first because her son comes first for her too. I'm taking things very, very slowly, and it feels right. This will be my last update on this chapter of my life. It's been a year since the wedding that wasn't in Italy, and it feels like a lifetime ago. My life is in a place I never could have imagined back then, in all the best ways. Emily is happy, healthy, and about to turn 12. She's developed a passion for photography, and I happily bought her a decent camera, encouraging her to find her own way to see the world. My relationship with Sarah has grown into something beautiful, stable, and deeply real. She and Emily have a natural, easy connection built on shared interests like art and silly animal videos. It's not a forced performance. It's a genuine, growing affection. We've been talking about moving in together next year, and for the first time, the idea of blending families doesn't fill me with dread, but with hope. As for Laura, I heard through the very faded grapevine that her relationship with Jean-Paul fizzled out after about 5 months. The glamour of yacht life apparently wasn't enough to sustain a real, grounded partnership once the scandal died down and real life set in. I heard she moved back to our city and tried to reach out to a few mutual friends, but most have kept their distance, unwilling to get involved in her drama. I feel a distant, detached sense of pity for her, but no anger. The anger has long since faded into a valuable, if painful, lesson learned. The Italian villa disaster is now a family legend, a story we tell, with a dark humor I never thought I'd possess, about the time Dad went nuclear at his own wedding and saved us all from a monumental mistake. The photo of Laura on the yacht? I don't look at it with pain or rage anymore. I look at it as the key that unlocked my cage. It was the brutal, undeniable truth that set me free. I learned the hardest way possible that trust is the absolute, non-negotiable foundation of everything. Without it, you have nothing but a beautiful facade hiding rot. I'm grateful every single day that I found out the truth before I said, I do. Walking away from that wedding, as hard and as humiliating as it was in the moment, was the hardest and best decision I've ever made. It reaffirmed my priorities, my integrity, and my daughter. Thank you, Reddit, for your unwavering support during the darkest and most confusing time of my life. You helped me see I wasn't the villain in my own story. I was the hero who finally decided to stop the show, tear down the set, and rescue himself and his little girl.